Meghan Markle has reportedly been quietly, yet decisively warned against traveling to Milan, according to multiple fashion insiders and European diplomatic sources. This time, the message is said to be unmistakably firm. Italian authorities and high-level fashion organizers have allegedly communicated that her presence is not welcome, marking a sharp departure from earlier instances where similar rejections were handled discreetly behind closed doors. Italy, a nation renowned for its reverence for tradition, cultural heritage, and strict social etiquette, is believed to regard Meghan as an unnecessary liability, someone whose controversies outweigh any perceived prestige she might bring. The decision is said to stem from mounting frustration across the European fashion circuit, particularly following a series of incidents in France. Meghan reportedly attempted to insert herself into several high-profile fashion events without formal invitations, arriving with expectations of VIP access and special treatment. These unannounced appearances allegedly caused confusion and disruption, forcing organizers to scramble and placing designers and public relations teams in awkward positions. Over time, patience wore thin. French fashion insiders, already exhausted by what they described as unpredictable and entitled behavior, are said to have quietly relayed their concerns to Italian counterparts. What followed, according to sources, was a rare show of unity among elite European fashion circles. Rather than risk similar disruptions during Milan's tightly controlled fashion calendar, Italian organizers reportedly chose to draw a clear line. The message, insiders say, was intentional and symbolic. Boundaries would now be enforced, reputations protected, and traditions upheld. In contrast to past situations where doors were left slightly ajar, this time the signal was unmistakable: no invitations, no exceptions, and no second chances. With no further indulgence and no more accommodations on the table, Italy's fashion establishment is said to be drawing a hard line. The Milan fashion scene, insiders stress, is far more than glittering runways and luxury labels. It is an extension of the nation's cultural identity itself. Events in Milan are not treated as mere commercial showcases, but as rituals rooted in legacy, hierarchy, and discipline. According to sources connected to Milan Fashion Week, Meghan represents precisely what organizers are determined to keep out: drama, distraction, and scandal. She is not viewed as someone who brings elegance or prestige, but rather as a magnet for headlines, and for a country fiercely protective of its global image. That is a risk they are unwilling to take. One organizer reportedly summed up the mood by saying Italy is a place of history and grace, not Instagram feuds or self-promotion. Another insider was even more blunt, questioning how someone perceived to have disrespected the British royal family could expect easy acceptance elsewhere. Behind the scenes, officials and industry figures have allegedly labeled her manipulative, attention-seeking, and fixated on clinging to titles and influence she publicly claims to have walked away from. After French authorities and fashion houses were forced to erect both literal and diplomatic barriers to prevent her from appearing uninvited, Italy is said to have no intention of allowing a repeat performance. A source close to Milan's planning team claims that senior event heads have already issued formal instructions to security teams. If Meghan attempts to attend any official function, she is to be denied entry immediately, regardless of who she arrives with or what status is implied. This warning, insiders emphasize, did not emerge in isolation. Over the past year, Meghan has increasingly distanced herself from accountability, even as countries, brands, and former allies quietly but decisively shut their doors. What was once a carefully curated image of a bold humanitarian and modern royal has, according to critics, unraveled into a persona increasingly defined by controversy, entitlement, and a relentless pursuit of attention. Allegations of bullying, narcissism, and hypocrisy have continued to follow Meghan Markle, further eroding what remains of her credibility within elite circles. According to multiple insiders, organizations ranging from luxury fashion houses to global non-profits have begun quietly distancing themselves, often without public statements, to avoid backlash. Their reasoning, sources say, is strikingly consistent. Wherever Meghan goes, complications seem to follow. Collaborations quickly turn into public relations liabilities, internal tensions rise, staff turnover increases, and the focus inevitably shifts away from the cause or brand to Meghan herself. For many institutions, that kind of reputational risk is simply not worth the exposure. Despite this growing isolation, Meghan continues to insist that she is deeply misunderstood. In both public appearances and private discussions, She has repeatedly claimed she was mistreated by the British royal family due to her race, portraying herself as bullied, silenced, and abandoned at moments when she needed support the most. She presents her narrative as one of resilience, framing herself as a symbol of hope, a champion for the voiceless, and a figure devoted to spreading compassion and destigmatizing mental health struggles. However, critics argue that the public record tells a very different story. Over the past several years, numerous reports have emerged describing Meghan not as a victim behind the scenes, but as the driving force behind toxic work environments. Former staff members have alleged they were pushed to emotional breaking points, subjected to relentless micromanagement, harsh verbal reprimands, and expectations they described as impossible to meet. Some reportedly resigned in tears, citing emotional exhaustion and sustained pressure that left lasting damage. While Meghan has consistently denied these accusations, observers note that the recurring nature of the complaints has made them increasingly difficult to dismiss as coincidence or misunderstanding. Italy, insider stress, is not interested in becoming entangled in that pattern. Unlike countries more willing to tolerate controversy for attention, Italian officials are said to have drawn a firm boundary. As one source bluntly put it, "We will not be Britain 2.0. They have no desire to serve as the next stage in an ongoing saga that brings division, distraction, and reputational fallout wherever it lands." The controversy, critics say, appears to follow Meghan Markle wherever she goes, and Italian officials are reportedly uninterested in offering her a new stage on which to reframe her story. In fact, sources suggest they want no involvement with the narrative at all. For someone who once spoke passionately about wanting privacy, Meghan's public trajectory over the past few years has signaled the opposite. With high-profile deals once secured with Netflix and Spotify, both of which have since unraveled, she built her brand around the image of a royal outsider, finally free to speak. But as those platforms disappeared and audiences grew fatigued by a storyline centered on grievance and victimhood, viable opportunities began to shrink. Now, as international resistance quietly mounts, her isolation is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Prince Harry, according to sources close to the couple, has been attempting to keep things afloat behind the scenes. He is said to have reached out discreetly to governments, including Canada, seeking assistance both financial and logistical. The response, insiders claim, mirrored Italy's stance, a firm refusal. Even Canada, once viewed as a safe harbour during the couple's post-royal transition, has reportedly expressed unease over the constant spectacle and controversy surrounding them. Harry has allegedly confided to associates that he no longer feels safe anywhere, that the pressure is relentless, and that he longs for public attention to simply fade away. Yet those same insiders say a very different mood exists behind closed doors. Anxiety about the future is said to be growing. The glamour has dimmed, projects have stalled, and meaningful work has dried up. What remains consistent, critics argue, is backlash. The grifters label that emerged during their split with Spotify did more than bruise egos, it crystallized a perception already circulating within the industry. That Meghan and Harry are adept at selling stories, but far less successful at delivering results. They know how to command attention, insiders say, but struggle to follow through on commitments. At this stage, it is no longer just unfavorable press, it has become brand contamination. Adding to the pressure, reports suggest that the Internal Revenue Service has taken an interest in how the Sussexes continue to fund an ultra-luxurious lifestyle without clear, active income streams. Expansive homes, private security, high-end wardrobes paired with a lack of new deals, and a growing list of legal, financial, and reputational concerns have prompted uncomfortable questions. To many observers, the numbers simply do not add up. So the question now looming is what comes next. Meghan has already cycled through multiple reinventions: actress, humanitarian, activist, modern royal, but with doors closing and skepticism hardening. Even long-time observers are beginning to wonder whether there are any credible roles left to play. Duchess, podcaster, producer, fashion icon, each role embraced by Meghan Markle has had its moment, and each, critics argue, has ended in controversy or quiet collapse. Now, as more countries close their doors and major brands step away, even some of her most vocal defenders appear to have gone silent. Public sentiment has shifted as well. Many feel they have heard the story too many times, and the familiar narrative of oppression and royal villainy no longer resonates as it once did. Sympathy has thinned, inconsistencies have become harder to ignore, and allegations of bullying have grown too widespread to dismiss. Attempts to reframe every setback as racism or misogyny, observers say, have lost their persuasive power, with audiences increasingly judging her by actions rather than explanations. I end this light. Italy's rejection is seen as more than a single Fashion Week snub. It is a broader signal that global patience may have run out. To critics, it suggests that the era of profiting from royal rebellion is ending, and that Meghan, once hailed as a symbol of modern change within the monarchy, is now viewed by many as a cautionary tale. She may point fingers at the media, the royal family, or a hostile world, but sooner or later, accountability is unavoidable. Because when doors appear closed in Paris, Milan, Dubai, Canada, and even goodwill at home remains fractured, the lingering question becomes unavoidable. Where does she go next, and what, if anything, is left?